My name's Don Brey, and apparently they thought you would like to hear from the Lord. And as unlikely as that is, I would like to talk a little bit about knowing your adversary. There was an article in today's paper that suggests that current conservatives are more likely to understand how liberals think than liberals are likely to understand how conservatives think. Whether or not that's true, it's good to know the arguments that are being made by those who are trying to defend the HHS mandate. First of all, the argument is made that those of us who oppose the HHS mandate are really just concerned about presidential elections and defeating Obama. That our real purpose is not to restore freedom of religion or that sort of thing, but to defeat Obama. You know, we have a lot of people from different religions, Catholic, Protestant, believers or unbelievers of a lot of things, but I got a question for you. Is anybody surprised about the fact that the Roman Catholic Church thinks contraception, sterilization, and abortion-causing drugs are bad things? You know, the Catholic Church has had these views for, about 2,000 years. Do you really think that in the Obama White House, they're getting together and finding this backlash and saying, who knew? Moreover, the claim of insincerity is hypocritical. Who was it that promised there would be no abortion on Obamacare, but now there is? Who promised that you can keep your current health care plan in Obamacare, but now you can't? Who promised that they are going to respect the traditional respect of religious freedoms in the rule implementing procedures, and now this is what we have? Indeed, if there was any politics, it was a fairly transparent attempt to split traditional Catholics from their evangelical and other allies who have different views about contraception. If this is dividing us, I'd sure like to see what uniting us would look like. Secondly, Obama has used the phrase freedom of worship and run away from the phrase freedom of religion. Now, what does that mean? We have in our Constitution a freedom of religion. We also have in our Constitution something about an establishment of religion. But he wants to privatize religion. So you can worship all you want, you can pray all you want inside the church, but once you step onto the public square by feeding the hungry, clothing the naked, visiting the sick, healing those who are sick, visiting those who are in prison, once you do those things, which of course Jesus never talked about, then you are in the public square and you've got to dance to the piper that he plays. And that's his view, apparently, of freedom of religion. But he forgets one other thing. It's not just freedom of religion. It's that Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion. Catholic hospitals are establishments of religion. Catholic schools are establishments of religion. And when you make a law that prohibits them from acting upon the core convictions of their faith, you are, in fact, telling them how to practice their religion. Thirdly, Obama will claim, and he has some accuracy about this, although not as much as he would claim, that the Supreme Court has interpreted the Constitution to say that generally applicable laws do not automatically have religious exemption. There was a case about a Native Indian church that used peyote in their religious services in 1990, and the Supreme Court, in my view, got it wrong. But Congress fixed that a couple years later by passing the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, which is a federal law that still applies to the federal government and its entities, saying that you cannot substantially burden the exercise of a person's exercise of religion in your regulations. When Obamacare was passed, they did not give Obama any authority to act contrary to the Religious Freedom Restoration Act. And therefore, his rules, according to a whole slew of lawsuits that have been filed against him, are illegal rules, in addition to being improper for other reasons. Of course, courts can and do get it wrong occasionally. Our duty towards God as we perceive him to be is not something that depends upon what Obama tells us we can or cannot do. Amen. And it does not depend upon what the U.S. Supreme Court tells us we can or cannot do. Fourthly, Obama and Sebelius claim that the enemies of the HHS rally, were enemies, not adversaries, apparently, want to take your contraception away. Anybody heard of Target? For $9 a month, people can buy contraception to their heart's content, whether they have a health care plan or not. And yet, they're telling this lie, because lies can often be believed if they're repeated often and fervently enough. They're telling a lie that the opposition to being forced to do what the Catholic Church believes is intrinsically evil is trying to prohibit people from having access to things they would otherwise would not have access to. Fifthly, Obama and Sebelius and their supporters are claiming that, the Catholic bishops are wrong. Because, there's a church of the bishop and the church of the people. They're going to be on the side of the anonymous people who disagree with the bishops. In the Catholic Church, we call those people Protestants. There's nothing wrong with being Protestant, but, the Catholic Church has its way of teaching its doctrine. And I have a question for Obama. Who died and made Obama Pope? What kind of people does he think we are? Does he really think that, we're just going to buckle under and do what he commands us to do? Well, it could happen, actually, because the line between good and evil is not between conservative and liberal, between Republican or Democrat, or even between believer and unbeliever. The line between good and evil runs through every human heart, including our own. And therefore, every one of us is capable of great good, and every one of us is capable of great evil. It may be that in a difficult time we feel crushed by the politics, worn out, and in despair we run away from this and stop fighting the fight. It may be that we decide we can compromise on this conscience because the costs are too hard to keep fighting the fight. It may be that we turn our back on the martyrs who lost their lives, their fortunes, and their happiness because they wanted to follow God rather than Caesar, because they wanted to follow God rather than Stalin, because they wanted to follow God rather than Mao, because they wanted to follow God as best they could understand him and as best they could at all times and all places. It may be that we choose the wrong path and turn our backs on God and what we are convinced are true. It may be, but I do not think we will.